It's a pleasure to come and enjoy a lovely lunch like this, and I really did quite enjoy my little effort at carving over there. I was a little concerned when Michael Angelakis invited me to come along, and he said I was going to be filleting fish. I was more concerned about your health, not mine, in how many bones and things you might be eating with your fish if I was going to have to fillet. So I was glad I was just carving up some fish for you to enjoy. Also, thank you to the Fergusons, Andrew and Deborah, for their work that they've done here and the support for today's event. This is a great opportunity to promote what else is out there. When I grew up, I was just thinking about it. In my pre-turning 10 years, fishing to me was my Uncle Phil lived down at Basham's Beach, and we used to go out with him late of an evening, and I was sent home well before the port came out, but it was, they'd go fishing, take the rowboat down to the beach, lift it into the water using the Fergie tractor and the crane on the back, row around the bay. Highly illegal fishing activities they would partake in. It was an undersized net, unlicensed, literally circling the bay and taking the whole bay in the catch. All of these things are highly illegal, I now know as Minister, but when I was under 10 it really didn't matter. We would enjoy the next morning the mullet cooked in the fry pan, and that was my experience of the out of the normal fish rather than just the butterfish at the fish and chip shop. Whereas today we've gone a long way from that. To see the number of species and things that are out there that we can enjoy, and I think that is a credit to all those developing these and growing this industry. As we open these opportunities to a much wider audience through supermarkets, is certainly also is going to grow this sector enormously. Also just exciting just hearing some stories of where the help's been for the industry over the last few months since Christmas. I was just hearing how Drake's sold 19 tonne of crayfish in that time, which is pretty amazing when it was something that was out of reach of most people. To see that come back into play is fantastic. So thanks very much. Please enjoy the different seafoods that are here today, and encourage others to enjoy them. It's certainly something that's going to make our experience here of seafood in South Australia much more enjoyable. The government's working hard to make fishing sustainable right across the board. We've put some things into place where we're seeing issues, so the snapper ban being one of them, that we've put in place while we'll try and get things back on track. We've done some exciting work in that space as well. One of the more fascinating things I've done as Minister is the release of 150,000 fingerlings into the Gulf, and amazingly how quickly you can actually put them in. We did it probably in less than 15 minutes. Just think how long it's going to take everyone to catch them back again in return is an amazing thing that's to see how that's going to work and develop, and hopefully it's going to be helpful for the fishing sector going forward. But the reforms we're putting in the marine scale fishing sector as well, all important to make sure that we protect those vulnerable species but encourage people to branch out into new things as well. So thanks very much and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Two legends of the seafood industry. Andrew Ferguson, currently the Managing Director of Ferguson's Australia, third generation family business that all started in 1969 when his father, Robert Ferguson, began fishing for southern rock lobster. And that's what we're being treated to today. In the southeast of South Australia, we started with southern rock lobster. Ferguson Australia is a major player in the seafood game, previously processing and marketing on average 450 tonnes of southern rock lobster a year. Be interesting to see how that's changed. And the business originally wasn't known as Ferguson Australia back then. In 2003, Deborah and Andrew actually founded the brand as Ferguson Australia and then developed your award-winning innovative lobster range. I'm going to invite you to the stage. Andrew, thank you. A round of applause, please. Michael Angelakis. I've known Michael since I was 20 years ago as a casual arriving in Australia with a backpack, and my first job was at David Jones, and met this big character coming in, and I steamed a shirt for him and dropped it off at a function that had to be done within about 6.5 minutes or else. And I came into work the following day and there was a kilo of prawns, courtesy of Michael Angelakis. He's a giving man, and Michael's grandfather, 90 years ago, Michael George Angelakis, always known as Michael, came to Australia from his home in the Greek island of Simi, and your father, George Angelakis, was an avid fisher, and often going out on a borrowed dinghy to fish in the waters on the far west coast of Australia. After settling in Adelaide in 1959 with his brother, Nick, and brother-in-law, Sam Spiro, they purchased fish, poultry and game enterprise and established the legendary Angelakis brothers in the Adelaide Central Markets, which, as we all know, is still there today. Michael's had an incredible impact on the seafood industry, especially with his work with the other Michael, the lesser known of the two, as Michael told me before, Michael Keelan, as a co-host on the Channel 7 TV show Out of the Blue. In 2003, he was awarded the Member of the Order of Australia for your service to the development and promotion of South Australian seafood, wine, food, tourism industries, because that was a big sector, and to the community through support for the health and social welfare agencies. Michael, please come to the stage.
It is important to be thinking about sustainability. We see around the world all these accreditations because other fisheries haven't been as well cared for as we do in Australia. Australia's very, very conscious. We have quota systems and we manage our fisheries very well, state fisheries and Commonwealth fisheries. So we don't have any fisheries under threat I'm aware of in Australia, and we'd just like to keep an eye on what is more likely to be overfished for the future, and then legislation is implemented to manage these fisheries as we don't overfish them. So this marine scale reform is bringing some measures in. One of the species is King George whiting. It doesn't mean that the fishery is under threat. It's just a management tool to make sure it doesn't become overfished. Our idea with these species really is about having people try something a little bit different. We're a little bit, I suppose, set in our ways in South Australia. We eat King George whiting. We know about that species. We know about garfish. We know about snapper, but it doesn't go much further than that. And there are a lot of other species around there. I mean, I was a fisherman as my background, a lobster fisherman, and we'd catch a lot of these species as a bycatch in our lobster pots, and we'd fill them up and take them home. I think, gee, that was good eating. And the ocean jackets, the knife jaw, the boarfish are all white, non-offensive fish. I mean, so there lies the opportunity, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and to divert people's taste buds to these other species, which is Michael's job in his TV show Out of the Blue, is a bit of a challenge for us. But I think with some support from the supermarkets and whatnot, and some promotions, we can have a go. And this is what today's all about.
Michael, why do you think people haven't in the past gone for some of these species?
Well, the GAB, the Great Australian Bight, is a new fishery, and the Raptors family have employed 2 trawlers to fish that fisheries. There are 40 species. It's the largest single fishery that produces that variety. You look at the fish, you think, oh, they don't look very attractive. You wouldn't sort of get wrecks that used to kiss fish to kiss any of the boarfish. So, but what Ferguson's have done, I'll take my hat off to them because they've done their own product development, is take fish out of fish. So all these species have to be filleted. They've got to be presented. And the consumer pack introduces you to these species, and then you get the retailers come on board, and which is the supermarkets, which are all the families are presented today. It's great When the call came out for the lobster industry needed help, I made one call to my mate Roger Drake. I said, Roger, industry needs help. He says, what can I do? And I said, let's broker a deal, which we did. And then all the other families, the Chapleys, the Romeos and the other Foodlands and Meg came on board to support the industry. So we need to promote it, we need to introduce them, and today is really a highlight. You know, everybody, you try the knife, you look at it and think, well, what's that? But once you take the fillet off, it's a fantastic fish like the latchet, the gurnard and the boarfish. So major resource, sustainable, pristine waters, no industry. It's out there to be developed. And speaking with Jim Raptors today, they can catch more of these species because we need that product base to promote these species into the marketplace. And thanks to Primary Industries and Sadi, that out of the blue was commissioned to promote these species in this current series of the show that's on Channel 7 before the news on Sunday. Introduces these species, how you catch them, how you process them and how you cook them. So, you know, today was simple, panko breadcrumbs, and it just highlighted that lovely taste of and they are thick fish, which are great because they contain a lot of omega-3, and cold temperate fish like our lobster, our prawns, and all our other fisheries have the best tasting as opposed to tropical water fish. So we're very blessed that we've got the largest fisheries in Australia, and if you didn't know, the largest fishery is 45,000 tonne of catchable, sustainable sardines, which now you can buy in a consumer pack, you know, fillets or barrels. And that, years ago, and still today, it's tuna feed, but it's all changing. Technology has been a great passport in us presenting products out there to the consumer, which has been great for the supermarkets that they can introduce these products. And where the concern was years ago was spoilage and shrinkage and all that, where that's been taken out of the equation. Did that answer your question in a short way?
A few others.
Yeah.
Michael, again, you know, we've been running a program, Same Dish, New Fish. The different techniques in cooking these new species that are not traditional, can people do exactly what they used to, or do they need to think of it as a different fish and needing to do it in a different way?
No, traditionally they can use that template of how they would present fish, but what makes it more interesting today, we have the taste of galunga and lemongrass, all those Asian flavours, and today we've got that influence of Arabic flavours, you know, couscous and other ingredients and spices that you can add to that fish and enhance the flavour. Not saturate it and camouflage it, but enhance the flavour. So current styles of new recipes just enhance that, and new ingredients make that difference. But basically, it's just traditional. You know, you had fish and chips today. Why would you spoil a fish with 20 other ingredients? You know, one thing we've learnt by filming in Italy, 4 ingredients maximum.
Andrew, the challenge of getting these to market, you know, the packaging, the presentation, all those sorts of things, how have you tackled that?
Well, I guess about 20 years ago we started going to Europe and seeing the trends in the marketplace. Some of those department stores, Waitrose, Selfridges, and you'd notice completely different way of packaging product in the UK. I mean, it was a convenience type of packaging, packaged mashed potato, for God's sake. So, and we saw those trends there and thought, you know, I'd had a fish shop in Victor Harbour years ago. Myself and my wife and another fishing family, Steve Hinge and his partner, we set up a fish shop between where Drake's are now and the Pollen Hotel, and renovated that. And the very first lesson I learnt out of that, or very quickly learnt, was bacteria and waste for fresh fish. And it's a very hard gig to run a good fresh fish counter, as anyone knows. You've got to be turning over the product really quickly. And so understanding what the problems were in that regard, and that we sort of reflected that in our lobster product as well, was a very key thing to learn and trends. But Australia wasn't going that way that quickly. And we'd had the idea of these products for a while, but the timing was what it was all about. Basically, what we've tried to do here with this product range is basically a fish shop, but in the frozen section, really making it convenient for a smaller retailer that doesn't want to run a fish counter and have all the problems associated with that. But, the mix of fish has to be important too. We notice the different states, Queensland have different species. We're very parochial in South Australia and Victoria with our species. That'll be the challenge for us going forward, is trying to make these species mix work in other states, and that's what we want to do. We want to roll this out across Australia and through Metcash and like, so that's what we look forward to the future.
And I guess going forward, what are the challenges that need to be tackled? Where are the roadblocks?
Well, we're here today talking about looking at one of the roadblocks, and that's getting people actually to understand and eat these other species that are plentiful, that actually we can spread our taste across these other species. I mean, my grandkids are a bit of a test. I mean, they eat fish, they love flathead, but they also love these species. They're not offensive, they're easy to eat, and that's a bit of a test case for us, I suppose. But it is a hard yard to have these products notified. That'll be the biggest challenge.
I guess one of the things, there was a story on the weekend news about some of these species, and how to eat ugly was, I think, the title of the story, which I think is unfortunate, because that's not what we need to be promoting about this, to get people looking at it. To me, it is the beauty of the taste that we actually need to be promoting, that, and the opportunity. So, Michael, how do you think we actually turn that around?
Well, all these species are not sold whole, they're all filleted. So you won't see the knife joints or the boarfish. But once you fillet them, they've got the most delicate flavour, and cold water fish, again, like temperate water fish, are sweet in their flavour. So they're not fishy, not like eating a sardine or those mackerels or those species which have a high oil content. These fish really are a fish, what we call the housewife's dream, because they're not too fishy. And the way they're presented today, and for my grandchildren, I do goujons, simple fish, the old day of fish fingers. That was our introduction to fish. So what I do is goujon, I do seasoned panko breadcrumbs, and sometimes I sprinkle them with a bit of shredded coconut, and they love it. So that's our introduction. And it would be great if the groups like Hungry Jack's or McDonald's, they did it once, that had a fish burger or something, and they can use these fish and turn them into burgers, and because the flavour's there, you don't have to do too much to it. Today you just had a crumb bit of fish, but you could actually taste the sweetness, and also what makes these fish good, they've got good shelf life, because the water temperatures are cold and they've got a lovely firm texture. So it really is, I implore the supermarkets, keep promoting it, put them into your catalogues, introduce it with recipes. You've got to really do the thinking for the market. It's got to be total. Great to have a fish, but what is the recipe? Like today, you're going to get a pack to take home, and there's a recipe in there for the knife's jaw. So I think we need to do what we call total marketing. And as I said, Out of the Blue's been charged with the responsibilities of introducing and promoting these products and really showing you how simple it is to cook it. You don't have to fillet it because it's done for you.
No bones.
And no bones.
Just a round of applause for David Fashion. Who says you can't put your ministers to work? Greatly appreciated. I'll let you take a seat. He took that very well. Just going to get him to MC for the day.
Oh.
Gents, talk about your bit of product diversity, as in packaging. That's one of the great things that differentiates Ferguson's Australia. How did that come about, and what's the mindset?
Yes, it has to be eye-catching. I mean, we had a marketing back in the early days, 20 years ago. We really it was drilled into us that it has to be eye-catching on the shelf, and I guess we've stuck with that theme. And yeah, it has to have a purpose. Obviously, you have to be looking at what we're trying to achieve here, and the purpose is convenience, And it's really looking at what makes it easiest for the housewife at home. I don't want the smell of, bits and pieces.
I'm not sure you can say that anymore, Andrew.
Sorry?
The housewives and house husbands.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Whoever fillets at home, the person at home doing the cooking and the smell in the rubbish bin, there's a whole lot of issues like that we've got to be looking at how we're addressing those issues. The lobster, I think we've got a challenge in front of us. We're looking at some lobster products now to go back to where we started back in early 2000s for convenience. And I think there's a great opportunity for a half lobster raw, and we're looking at what's available on the market. There's really nothing in that space, so we're looking at further developing that as well.
Look, I think all of us around the room, we know it's been a difficult 18 months, but purely from a domestic, selfish consumer, how bloody brilliant is it that we can have lobster for lunch and it's at a more affordable rate? How's the focus been to adjust to being more domestic?
Yes, it's something that we've had to adjust quickly to. I mean, we woke up one morning on the 28th of October, it was, that we lost a whole lot of shipments in China. And what are we going to do next? And we really had to, we had to have a hard look at ourselves. It was fortunate that we'd been progressing this fish pack range organically. We were just letting it roll out, and we were just sort of letting it run. We had to certainly start thinking about things a little bit different in that angle. The lobsters, we were for a couple of weeks we didn't send anything to China, obviously, or to anything anywhere, and then Christmas was upon us, and we were lucky to be able to do a deal with the lobsters to supermarkets, and that really helped us no end to get overcoming that stage. Since then, it's been a progression of finding other markets, and we haven't solved those problems. We're still a way away. I mean, we're going to be looking back this year again to Christmas. Christmas will be an important marketplace for lobster this year, so the price of lobsters hasn't really increased a lot. It's increased a little bit. Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, those markets we've expanded in those markets because the lobsters are cheaper. I think over Easter and whatnot, China, Hong Kong was awash with lobsters. But we've got to remember that New Zealand now is totally focused on China, so they've moved out a lot. They were in these markets as well, so we've taken that up as well. So there's a little bit of space in the marketplace that we've filled. But yes, it's going to be looking more, I think, for the future for us, is going to be developing lobster products for the supermarket, not only in Australia but for the world.
Michael, you've been doing this for a long time. Changing consumer habits is probably the first step. How do you see, or do you think the last 18 months have changed things enough that consumer buying habits are here to stay?
Definitely. What's been great, that the largest retailers and the consumption of seafood sales is through the supermarkets. So the introduction of lobster in the local market, what it did, it endorsed the fact that you could go to your local independent supermarket and get a good product. It's reliable, it's fresh, and that's given credibility to those supermarkets that they can handle seafood. Most supermarkets have got a seafood counter. So, family like mine that have been in the game for 90 years, those families like Capos are out of it, are becoming less and less. So we're very reliant to grow this sector is through the supermarkets. And so the lobster exercise has endorsed them that they are a reliable retailer of seafood. And what's great about the supermarkets that are here today, they all are pro-South Australia. So that's been a great advantage to us. They work with the supplier, they don't screw you around like the other two major retailers, and they're great to work in. You get to know them. Hey, can we do this promotion? Can we do that? They're always there to be totally supportive. So to grow the sector is through these species that we spoke about today. There are 40 species which are sustainable, And the other thing that I keep promoting is the years that we used to fish for the market, and Jim Raptis knows this too well, have changed. Today, and it's been my cry to the Minister and to Stephen Marshall, is today we've got a farm for the market. We've got nutrient-rich waters. Where the days we used to get flounder and butterfish out of the Coorong, and as the Minister said, they released 150,000 snapper fingerlings. So while we encourage these new fishies, the new resource, we also got to become very aggressive in aquaculture because, you know, we've got the waters. What's wrong with putting fingerlings into the Paddle Wollonga or into West Lakes and let kids catch a fish in a safe environment? What's wrong with putting fingerlings into the Coorong, nutrient-rich water, and we get our saltwater bream, we get our butterfish, we get our flounder. As I said, we've got the most diverse range of marine fish in Australia. You know, there's nothing that we don't produce, and we've done it well. Unfortunately, years ago, tuna was worth about 400 million. Our total industry today is under 250 million. So tuna is a major threat. It's suffering because of COVID and the Japanese market. They had product development into China. So the only way we're going to grow this sector to where it was is through new species, through technology, and I mentioned what we've done with a whole range of products, and farming for the market. And the Minister's heard that cry from me, and I think he's given up on me. But that's the opportunities that lay forward.
It's an election year.
It is. Oh, don't worry, I'll be on his back. Don't worry. I don't
took the
call
microphone
him.
away.
Yeah, I don't call him the Minister for Fish and Chips for nothing. Okay?
I suppose it's across all industries, though. You think about the wine industry, and people only drink Shiraz. You know, it's introducing, so, you know, a Montepulciano or just something different. It's all about education. So I brought up, if you all got to have the canapes that went around earlier, but giant boarfish, ocean jacket, knife jaw, and latchet. Not for some people that would be familiar, but for most, they're new varieties. I laugh at Jason Bird. When we came in and said, oh, we'd love to book the National Wine Centre, and by the way, this is the food we'd like to provide, most places would generally shake their head at you, and special thank you, because we'll see Stephen Clark when he comes out, but wonderful chef and incredibly accommodating. So how much effort and support can you get for these new varieties from government? Do you think you can get more support?
Oh, absolutely. The government has a fund, don't you, Minister, that can help product development, because what you saw today, and go up to that display of Ferguson's, they've done that with their own funding. They've done it at a time when they're losing a lot of money from the lobster fishery that used to support all this product development. So they've done an incredible job. And this is something that the government has taken up to look at funding, case by case, people submitting a thing. How can we value add? What can we do different to introduce this product to the market? As I said, technology. The Goolwa cockles are now pippies because we purge them. Sardines, as I said, are in a 21-day shelf life in a consumer pack. Mussels that have been debedded are also in a pack. So technology provides us, but it's very expensive, it's very costly. And for someone, and I really congratulate the Ferguson family, they've done that on their own back at a time when they really couldn't afford to do it, but they diversified.
There's people in the room. The one thing that luckily you have is a luxury item that now you're able to introduce, and I'm sure people that have survived economically, have survived the last 18 months, very much would look forward to having your seafood on their plate for this Christmas. How are you coping with, you talked about 400 tonnes, how are you coping with that supply and demand?
Yeah, well, we've taken a bit of a drop this year. We've had to be very conservative with our exports of lobsters, because once we buy those lobsters and stick them in our tanks, we've got to then worry about selling them. When there's a fluid market, which China was, although there was a lot of problems in China at the same time when the price went too high. But you've just got to watch and be very careful about not getting caught and paying too much for the lobsters in the tanks. So we've just been a bit more conservative this last season. It hasn't worked out too badly for us as far as a processor goes. I mean, I've still got fishing boats as well, and that part of the business has certainly been hurt. But look, it's just a matter of time. I think the biggest impediment we've got is not being able to travel and meet new customers and find new customers. We've certainly done a number of Zoom meetings and talked to different people, but it doesn't work the same as going to a trade show, presenting something like we've presented over there. Then, I mean, this is the perfect environment really to promote your product, where you can talk to people, you can showcase, and get to talk directly to the customers, build relationships, because it's all at the end of the day, it's going to be on relationships, and that part of the business is gone for the moment. Until we can get back and connect that way, it will be slow going for the next few years, I guess.
Michael, it was great to see Channel 7 run the piece at the weekend. God forbid they turn something positive into a bit of a negative. Never seen that in the media before, and it's a shame that...
No, never.
At least we could watch it for free. Just seeing what's about to come out. We pushed them back slightly, but do you want to explain exactly what's coming out on the plate, Andrew?
Yes. So it's a half a lobster. We cooked these lobsters yesterday, and it's all right. Half a Southern Rock lobster. We think there's a big opportunity in the local market and export market in developing this as a product as well. It's not done. You won't find it anywhere. This is a cooked lobster, but the more, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the wineries and breweries and that, I'm seeing it more and more on Facebook. On the griddle, lobsters one side, some garlic butter on one side. Beautiful. That's a good segment for out of the blue. I don't know if you've done that one. So look, I think there's going to be some opportunities to develop lobster products more suited to supermarket retail than we've ever have done before.
So there's a couple of, just so if you can't read your menus in front of you, I'll make it really easy for you. There's a sriracha and kimchi mayonnaise and an avocado green goddess dressing. We dragged the other chef up here, but he really doesn't like to be photographed or interviewed. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for him to come out. What I would like to do is, there's a lot of people in the room. I've got Brooke is going around with the microphone. I think any questions you have, just put your hands up, and it's nice to have an open forum. I know that your wife, Deb, wanted to know why you hadn't set up a tourism facility where the old wet fish setup was? Or just opportunities going forward?
Well, maybe I think as we move forward, we actually are looking more at the Chinese market. We've got a gentleman here, a big tall guy here, Anson, who is doing some good work for us at the moment with Red Book for the Chinese market. We've been very fortunate that there's a lot of Chinese still that live in Australia that still really want to buy lobster directly. So that's a market we're working on at the moment, and I think that that was something maybe in the future we will attract tourists. Maybe at Port Macdonald we've got an offer down there where we have a shop, and we're seeing a lot of Victorians coming across the Great Ocean Road and ending up in Port Macdonald. And I think there's perhaps in the future there's an opportunity there to develop something more on the tourist scale and perhaps encourage those lobster eaters to end up in Port Macdonald.
Hi, Andrew. I was going to ask you, what is your favourite way to eat fish at home?
Well, if you've got, as fish goes, I sort of can't ever go past fish and chips. I mean, if I ever cook it, it's always crumbed or fish and chips. So that's probably the best way. I mean, if you ask me about lobster, my wife Debbie makes a great lobster mornay. So that's probably my favourite way to eat lobster.
All looks fantastic. Just looking over the shoulders of everyone, it is raining outside. I think there's a special shout out to anyone that's doing the CEO sleep out this evening. I think, anyone here doing it? Do you want to just stand up for a second? Just to get them off. So. Amy from Duncan Bashir, Hannah. And Mike from Google Cloud Services. You crazy people. Congratulations. I suggest you bid to pay the extra money to sleep in one of the cars. It'd be worth every dollar. Michael, just to close, your passion, been doing this a long time. Where do you see the next 12 months and what are you sinking your teeth into?
I think there's going to be a lot of change. We need change, we welcome change, we just can't rely on what we've done for the last X number of years. As I said, our fisheries across the board have lost over 50% of their value. So hopefully with this new trade agreement, and I see the opportunity for Ferguson's lobsters to cut in halves, uncooked, to go into the UK market, especially also into the French market and all the rest of it. So product development, opportunities with these lesser known species that we're promoting, that Raptors is catching in the Great Australian Bight. Aggressive, and I say the word, aggressively start farming for the market and introducing fingerlings into our waterways, more product development, the promotion, and we've really proven through technology what we can do, because the days when I was a fishmonger, there is more product available in the market. There are more retailers today selling seafood than ever before. And support the industry. We really need it to survive.
Question at the back. Coralie?
Thanks, Steve. Michael, I'm just questioning, or basically, how long do these, like this looks absolutely amazing, and how long does it take to get a lobster this size and the farming process involved in production?
Andrew, best answer, I think lobsters are unsustainable to farm because they take too long to grow, a bit like the initiative of farming and raising bluefin tuna from spat to fingerlings, etc. Very expensive, and really the fishery and the quotas supply the market with enough product. The more you're going to flood it, it becomes unviable to those that have made a huge investment in the industry with boats and quotas, etc. How do you see it, Andrew?
I totally agree, Michael. These are wild caught; they're not farmed. They're cold water species, and they take a long time to grow. So from an egg, phylosoma, through to a size lobster is about 4 or 5 years. So the colder water species are slower growing. I see there's a new venture going into northern Western Australia for tropical species. They're growing those. They've had a bit of a go at that before. It's a couple of years, but it's a very risky process growing lobsters. They've got a molt to grow. They grow out of their old shell to go to the next size, and they're very vulnerable at that stage. And it's so expensive to do this and risky. So I think we're a long way away from seeing aquaculture, particularly in these species. The quicker growing species like prawns, barramundi, yes, but they're a lot shorter life cycle. So this is right at the top end of a very hard species to bring through the life cycle to get to a size lobster. So probably a long, long way away.
There was an article in the news out of Washington yesterday where a lobster diver was swallowed whole by a humpback whale and then spat back out again. So that's the media's different slant on things. Much safer farming in South Australia. The one thing I'll close on, I think the main ethos of how we do business and why we've teamed up with Michael and Andrew today is about supporting local business, supporting local industries, and how you can work within those industries. So whether you work in technology that can help out the seafood industry, or just you've got a service that the family business may not have realised is available to them. That's what we're all here to do. Yes, we're having beautiful produce and beautiful wines, but it's all about working together. It did come up before with the I Choose SA campaign, which is a particular campaign that was run through DTI and is now solely supported through Catherine Sayer at Food SA and Showcase SA across all industries. So that's our financial commitment. We rebuilt the I Choose SA business directory that in December last year we thought it was really cool to make all businesses affected by the bushfires got a free listing on the website, so the premier listing. And then within a couple of months, everybody needed a premier listing because, let's face it, everyone was in trouble. But it's all about supply chains. Supply chains is how we do business, it's how we all survive, and it's how we thrive. So,
Steve, can I just say in closing, really on behalf of Andrew, we'd like to congratulate Showcase. You've brought together today to highlight the industry, the opportunities to come. You've got Catherine here from Food SA, you've got the Minister endorsing and supporting it through the Marshall government. You've got the major retailers here in South Australia. You've got the largest fishing company in Australia being Raptus. So that you know, this is what you've created. You've brought it all together. And could you please join me in thanking Stephen and his company?
Thank you, Michael. Greatly appreciated. And because sometimes we don't forget to promote ourselves, there is a little card on your table that says, doing business doesn't have to be boring. That's pretty much our motto in life. And if you're not a Showcase member, we'd love to have you on board. You'll be surprised the opportunities across industry. And members work with members. That's how South Australia works. It's how we all thrive. So on that, please enjoy your lunch, enjoy your wines, and feel free to catch up with everyone and enjoy today. And thank God for those doing the CEO sleep out. So.